Welcome to Through the Looking Glass. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about more of the amendments. We're going to be covering the 3rd through the 8th. But before we do that, as always, I'm going to hand it on over to Russ.
Hello, welcome back to Through the Looking Glass podcast, where a couple of guys sit down, talk about all the interesting things that we can think of. Like Adam said, 3rd through the 8th, so we're covering 6. They're some of the lesser ones. A couple of them have some standing Supreme Court decisions, but it's kind of important to know a couple of them pretty well because they are very important to your civil liberties. Thank you for joining us tonight. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Share us with your friends. Watch our shorts. Be a part of this, and maybe come on board sometime. Talk with us about anything you want if you're interested. Let's get right into her.
Yeah, we're gonna have Trump on next week.
Oh yeah, I was so disappointed with that from Timcast.
It was not bad. It was short, but
it wasn't what I was expecting. They definitely made it sound like it was going to be a live thing, but
I
didn't watch
to
it.
digress, it was good. That's the first podcast, quote unquote, he's been on, right? That's pretty interesting. So, Third Amendment, pretty straightforward. No soldier shall, comma, in time of peace be quartered in any house, comma, without the consent of the owner, comma, nor in time of war.
I don't think you need to read the commas.
They are important.
Yeah, but it's kind of boring.
Yeah, but they are important when it comes to it, just like the Second Amendment. It
Yeah,
does
but
matter where
instead
the
of saying comma, you could just
right.
take a little space between what you're going to say next.
yeah, you sound like Biden.
Yeah.
And applaud. Tired of that, man. Without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. So basically saying your property cannot be seized against your will to house soldiers, but your property can in fact be seized, called eminent domain, which has been used in the past, not so much anymore, but has been. So, yeah, you cannot be forced to house soldiers or anybody of military forces unless it's the pandemic, because that happened.
Where did that happen?
It's under scrutiny right now, but it was so people who were in the military who were like refusing to get the jab, they were kicked off bases, and they would like places that they were renting from, or ex-military or things like that. It's one of the arguments going around is that with the rent moratoriums, that was basically individual state governments bypassing the Third Amendment in certain ways.
How were they bypassing it, though?
Because you were not, as a property owner, you were not allowed to evict people, which is forcing an owner to like give up the rights to their own property.
I thought the Third Amendment had to do with quartering troops, though.
Yes, because some of the people in question were in the military, so it's like a weird little.
But they weren't really forcing them to house specifically people because they were part of the military.
That's why it's being argued out right now. That's why people are kind of. It hasn't been in discussion for a while, but it was one of the major things that people were talking about when the rent moratoriums were going on.
Yeah, I can see how it's adjacent.
Yeah.
Because...
Yeah, it doesn't cover the whole thing, but it's one of those, does it or doesn't it? You know? It's kind of one of those things where the Supreme Court would have to say, yeah, this doesn't count. Third, very, very, very simple. There was one...
So when's the last time it was actually in place? Like people could.
Good question.
During the Revolutionary War, I believe.
So
250 years ago. So
there was
haven't had to worry about it in a while.
One major case, Ingram versus Carey, in the Second Circuit Court in 1982. A landmark decision by the United States of Appeals for the Second Circuit, interpreting the Third Amendment of the United States Constitution for the first time. It is notable for being one of the few significant court decisions to interpret the Third Amendment prohibition of quartering soldiers in homes during peacetime without the owner's consent. The dispute covered the housing of the National Guard in worker dorms while they were acting as prison workers during a strike. Interesting. So that's really the last time.
So to answer your question, though, Jesse, before that was made an amendment to the Constitution, it was in 1965, the British Parliament enacted the first of the Quartering Acts, requiring the American colonies to pay the cost of British soldiers serving in the colonies, and requiring that if the local barracks provided insufficient space, that the colonists lodge the troops in alehouses, inns, and livery stables.
Is it 1965?
Or 1765, my bad. I thought I said 17.
War
So
50 years?
Sorry, there's a 9 down here on my screen that I kind of saw. I think that might have thrown me off.
That would have been the reason why they implemented it, why they said it. We're seeing a government do this to individual people. Yeah. We want to make sure the government that we make isn't allowed to do it. Pretty straightforward for the third. I agree with it. Yeah, the U.S. government should not have the right to seize somebody's property to house up soldiers, I mean, if it absolutely came down to it and there were hot conflict on the ground, chances are you wouldn't still be in your house in a conflict zone.
Well, and they have plenty of government buildings everywhere that they would be able to lodge in.
Yeah, but I'm saying if there were urban conflict, say here in Elmira, a majority of us would already evacuate before conflict would start. And then if a soldier was sleeping in my apartment because that's the position they have to hold, I'm not going to give a shit because you're in the middle of a conflict. So, yeah, third, pretty straightforward. Straight to the fourth. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue, but be upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. I am a huge proponent for the Fourth, Fifth Amendment. They kind of go hand in hand with you just protecting yourself from, honestly, tyrannical government. If you really have a problem with how cops treat people in your town or something, it is really important for you to know your Fourth and Fifth so that you can protect yourself from being targeted.
Yeah, it applies to different areas
differently,
unevenly. Yeah, some places cops are really cool, and then other places, I mean,
I could definitely see how cops in Elmira, New York, are not as harsh or brutal as inner city Chicago police, But even in inner city Chicago, you should still know your rights and have confidence in securing your personal well-being. I know there is a little bit of conflict when it does come to the Fourth and Fifth and being out in public. A lot of people seem to think that if you're in public, you still have a reasonable expectation of privacy, and that is true when it comes to your own person, like your belongings, your pockets, what you have in your purse, things like that. But if you're walking down the street, there is no real expectation of privacy. So I know that's a little bit of contention when it comes to First Amendment auditors.
It's not like the police like to protect our privacy anyways. I think the Fourth Amendment would probably be the amendment that police like to just walk on the most.
Well, they have to, if they want to do their job and protect the citizens.
No, they don't have to, because they're violating one of my rights when I tell them I do not consent to any searches or seizures of my car because they pulled me over for a taillight being out. And now you're wasting my time because you're going to search my car and find nothing because there's nothing in here.
Yep. but they suspected without reasonable articulable suspicion that you were committing other crimes because, like you said, if your tail light's out, that's nothing more than a traffic infraction. So
Because I had elf locks in my hair, so I looked like a dirty hippie. And I feel like because I looked like a dirty hippie, they assumed, oh, this guy's got weed on him.
yeah, yeah.
No,
so
I leave that shit at home, man.
did he say I smell marijuana?
No, he didn't even say he smelled marijuana the one time he was trying to search my car.
Did he eventually search your car?
I'd say 90% of the time this happened, they would use that as an excuse, which I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure the Supreme Court or even courts within the state have ruled that smelling marijuana is not probable cause.
It still is. Still is.
I'm pretty sure in some places it's not.
In New York, it is. So, like, an officer can say, I smell alcohol in the vehicle. That's reasonable, articulable. But the thing with that is, so if it's the same officer that does it over and over and over and over again, and there's evidence to back something up like that an officer keeps abusing that power, then he can be reprimanded to the point where he gets fired, you know? So if he pulls over 100 people and he says, I smell alcohol, and 99 out of the 100 times, he never finds...
No. In New York, smelling marijuana is not probable cause to search a vehicle.
Yeah,
the
not
smell
anymore.
the smell alone was not sufficient probable cause.
Yeah, not anymore, since it's been federally legalized.
Well, it's not federally legal. And your statement just a minute ago was in New York, they can search your vehicle by smelling, and they cannot.
I mean, it shouldn't be a probable cause anywhere.
If they, like, smell something.
Yeah,
I don't really believe it should be either.
because the only things you can really
I kinda lost my
smell are
train there.
marijuana, which it's going to be on you for hours.
Yeah. But same thing with alcohol.
Yeah, and
I kind
alcohol.
of get it with alcohol, but
Yeah,
if a driver isn't, like, visually and clearly impaired, just smelling alcohol, that could be so many things. You know, somebody could have just put sanitizer on their hands or
and
mouthwash.
a lot of perfumes and colognes
Are
have
heavy
a
in
strong
alcohol.
alcohol smell.
Yeah.
Yeah, even the Supreme Court has ruled that smelling marijuana is insufficient. 'Cause there are other-
insufficient for
there-
what?
For probable cause to search, because there are other things that can have that smell.
Yeah, you can have a pet skunk in your car.
I almost ran over a skunk the other day, which is funny because like 3 days before that, someone else and I at work were talking about running over a skunk, and they were saying how bad it is because the smell just sticks to your vehicle. I'm so glad I missed that thing.
Plain view doctrine. I know that one. They really hate it when you look in the police cruisers, even though it it works for them as well. Smell of marijuana alone is not considered sufficient to establish probable cause for a vehicle search.
Now, if you got a half-smoked joint sitting there in an ashtray or something in your car and they see that,
yeah, that's
then
plain
that's
view
probable
doctrine.
cause.
Yeah, that falls under plain view. They can see it, then they can.
Yeah, like I
in
had an
cases
idiot friend one
specified by
time.
the smell of
I had an
marijuana,
idiot friend one
must be
time have an open
other
bottle.
factors.
Hey, man. I had a friend one time have an open bottle in the back of my car just sitting there when we got pulled over. Didn't think to hide it, nothing, just had it sitting there. I'm like, oh, you fucking idiot. I didn't even know he had it.
Right.
Had it in his pocket when we got in the car.
Road
So here, I should have clarified. It is not the scent of something alone, but in combination of others. So most of the time, if an officer ends up like writing a ticket, if they want to be a real prick about it, they will put on there that their probable cause was they, 1, smelt marijuana, 2, eyes were glassy, was doing the stereotypical blah, blah, blah for under the influence. So it's in combination.
So all
Right,
signs
but
pointed
the
to
smell alone
is
not enough. So if I'm
that's
getting
where I was wrong.
So if
The
I'm
smell
getting
alone.
pulled over for a license plate lamp being out, and then the guy says he smells marijuana, and my eyes aren't glossy, I wasn't driving in and out. I'm responding to him perfectly coherent. There's no other probable cause to search the vehicle except for the fact that he wants to be an asshole and make my night rough.
I don't even think license plate lamps shouldn't be, for one, it shouldn't be a thing, and it shouldn't be a reason to pull someone over. Because either it's the daytime and you can see it, or it's a nighttime and you're behind them and your lights are on it and you can see it. So
Most of the
license plate lamp
time,
doesn't do anything.
most of the
Stupid.
time it is just a reason to pull somebody over. I can kind of understand because they need to be able to see your license plate for one.
Well, they can see it with their headlights on. If
Yeah.
it's night, their headlights have to be on, and they
Yeah.
can see it.
Yahtzee.
It's one of those things where it
If you
for
think
the most
about it,
part,
don't make
it
no
is just for pulling people over. But it also is not enough a reasonable suspicion to like. It's not a criminal offense.
No.
So if an officer pulls you over, like just for an example, here in New York, you get pulled over because your headlight is out, your tail light is out, your lamp light for your license plate is out.
Yeah, taillights and headlights
That
make sense.
alone is not enough for an officer to say, "Get out of the vehicle. I'm going to search you in your vehicle." It's just not. There has to be other suspicion.
That should
Right,
be
but
day one.
But you originally said that the smell was enough reasonable suspicion.
Yeah,
which
that's
is where
that's
I
where
was
I
saying
messed up.
that it's
It
not.
alone is not enough, but usually in combination of other things. Like
Right, so you were wrong. Win for Adam. Checkmate.
That should be
in
day
its
one when
strictest,
Trump gets
in its
in.
strictest.
Trump should say, tail light or the license plate light, get rid of them. Day one.
I think
First thing he should do. No more license plate lights.
And then after that, he should make it illegal for pants companies to make pockets on women's pants so small.
Yeah.
Should be illegal.
That is kind of a thing just to sell purses.
Yep.
But
Genius, though.
yeah, I believe a lot of traffic infractions are simply just to generate revenue. But
oh, that's their only reason.
Extortion.
because a lot of our rights do grant us a lot of protection, laws had to be written in a way for police officers to be able to supersede them. So it's one of those, double-edged sword things where if police officers didn't have a reason to pull you over for having a busted out tail light, then he might not notice that, oh, you have a dead body in the backseat of your car. It's one of those things where it's for every
That's why you
100
do.
people they pull over, they might catch
If
the
you have a
one
dead
felon.
body in your car, you should make sure all your lights
That's
are
what I'm saying. You should do a whole inspection of the vehicle before transporting that body.
Well, if they
This
were
is
willing
common
to
sense.
murder somebody, they probably don't care. But it's one of those things where the law itself, under the color of law, their reason is for every 100 people we pull over for this stupid reason, we're going to catch the one felon that's committing a real crime. That's their justification for it. I don't agree with it. I'm simply explaining this is like their thought process, and they're going to generate, revenue through taxes and tickets and things like that. They have to keep the system rolling,
Extortion.
Yeah, because if you're not getting a ticket for having a tail light out, then the judge isn't going to court, and he's not getting paid, and then other bureaucrats aren't getting paid, then the officer's not getting. The system has to keep running, right? The machine has to keep going. Yeah, Fourth Amendment. Terry stops, I don't agree with at all. I don't believe any state.
Terry stops. Are those the stop and frisk?
Those are stop and
Okay.
frisk. I think there might be only 10 states that still have Terry stops where you can be stopped and just asked to like, hey, I'm going to pat you down kind of stuff.
Are they still doing that in New York City? Because I know
like
for
in
a
the
while.
subway and stuff?
I know for a while they were doing that in New York City.
New York City, yeah, it was rampant.
Yeah.
I think that was during Giuliani.
Yeah, it was-
but then
yeah,
it stopped.
it was a while ago.
Terry stop in NYC.
Why is it Terry stop? Was the first person
Terry
that they did it to?
Terry v. Ohio was the case, and that's why it's called a Terry stop.
Every time I hear the name Terry, I just think, back up, Terry. Terry, no. Terry, back up.
Yeah. So it was a
There was this dude in a wheelchair that they were shooting off fireworks, and his electric wheelchair malfunctioned, and like he couldn't get away, so they're like shooting off right next to him, and like the dude recording's like, "Oh no, Terry, no, Terry, oh Terry."
Yeah, the case was Terry v. Ohio in 1963, where two men were stopped and frisked. The gentleman, John W. Terry, took the case to the Supreme Court, where the courts did say yes, like an officer can stop you and pat you down, but it has been fought at the state level to where various states have said, no, we're not going to allow this. The Stop, Question, and Frisk program, or Stop and Frisk, in New York City, a majority of them have stopped. Over 90% have stopped since 2017. Age 14 to 25, contrast 54. I'm not seeing if you can still stop and frisk, but I know New York as a whole is not a stop and frisk state. Like if you or I were walking down the street right now and a police officer approached us, I mean, yeah, he can ask us questions.
So this 2024 map I got pulled up here says New York is a stop and identify law. It doesn't say stop and frisk. It says stop and identify.
No, absolutely not. No. I know for a fact because I've done it. Like, I know that's just anecdotal, but I'll die on that hill. Absolutely not. New York is not a stop and ID state. An officer cannot approach you and demand your ID.
Can they do that anywhere?
No. There's only certain states where states with.
Oh yeah, speaking of fireworks, I tell you guys I got hit by a firework once.
A firework?
Yeah, it hurt. My leg was burnt. It didn't explode on my leg, but it grazed my leg, gave me a big old bruise.
It's saying New York is, but I know for certain because I've done this. Like, if you get stopped by a police officer, if he does not have reasonable articulable suspicion of you committing a crime, you do not give your ID.
Yeah, see, what I got here on Google is telling me that you are not required to carry an ID in New York, and you don't have to show ID to a police officer. If you are issued a summons or an arrest, however, and you refuse to produce ID or tell an officer who you are, the police may detain you until you can be positively identified.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
so I wonder if it's maybe only New York City?
I'm guessing it is.
Maybe, because they have some wild and
This is showing
vary
20.
state.
Not explicitly listed in the search results, but implied as having such laws. Arizona, California, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky. It varies from state to state. I know specifically in New York, if you are stopped by an officer, he can detain you, right? You can be walking down the street and you can be detained, but you still don't have to give your ID if you're being detained. You can ask questions. What crime do you suspect me of committing? If they say, we're doing an investigation, that's not a crime. You're being suspicious is not a crime.
Yeah, the one time I got stopped, this was quite a long time ago. There was just a couple of us hanging out. We were sitting on the corner somewhere, and a cop just came and stopped. He stopped and asked everyone for their ID. I didn't have my ID on me. And he was kind of poking and prodding, but eventually it was like, all right, oh yeah.
That's what they do, though. That's what they do. That's the thing is police are specifically trained to know how to get through your rights to get you to do stuff. But it really comes down to with the 4th and the 5th specifically is how confident you are in knowing your state's laws and your rights in your state, how confident you are willing to push back against an officer. If you know absolutely 100% you're just an innocent civilian walking down the street, an officer approaches you, throws accusations, and you want to stand your ground, it is a risk, but it is your right.
Yeah,
if
most of the time they'll back down because they know you know what you're talking about.
If you're like, I want the RAS, why are you stopping me? If they just say, oh, you're suspicious, you're walking funny in this neighborhood, or this or that, none of those are crimes. Let me see your ID. No. Tell me what crime you think I am committing right now. We have reports of suspicious activity. Cool. What law is that? What law is suspicious activity? Tell me what law I'm breaking specifically. And most of the time they won't answer. They'll just keep skating around because they know better. But that is what it is. I do also know when it comes to the 4th, this has been done with checkpoints across the United States, how most of the southern borders have them. If you come to like a border, not specifically a border checkpoint, but like a state checkpoint, and it's one of those stops, you roll up and they're like, let me see your ID. You legally don't have to because your travel is being impeded without any legal cause. So you can just sit there and waste their day.
Yeah, because you're supposed to be able to freely travel between states without...
Yeah. As to where driving is a privilege, not a right, so that's why you are required to have an ID to drive. The vehicle has to be registered, blah, blah, blah. And that's why when you do get pulled over, you have to produce ID because you have to make sure that you can prove you have the privilege to drive. But a checkpoint in itself, you're not being pulled over for committing a crime or traffic infraction. Therefore, you don't have to show them nothing. That simple as that. There's tons of these videos online. I've been watching First Amendment auditors for probably 6 years. I'm pretty confident in my knowledge of New York State laws, especially when it comes to like filming public servants and things like that. I highly recommend watching Long Island Audit. He is fantastic.
I've caught some of his videos.
I love the way he stays respectful with people. He doesn't push the boundary. He's not a dick. He's really educational when it comes to stuff like that.
Do you think there should be driver's licenses? Or rather, do you think people should have to have a driver's license?
Driving's not a right.
I'm saying
traveling is.
That's what I'm saying. Do you think driving should be a right to all citizens to where you don't need a license unless you don't have a license and you are the cause of an accident? Then maybe after that,
So
they
if
can
you don't
force
need
you to have...
If you don't need licenses, I feel like you still at least have to prove you can drive before getting in one of those death machines.
But
At least take the driver's test still.
then that same argument will be made for the Second Amendment, where it's like you have to prove that you're competent with a firearm.
I'm kind of for that. I mean,
Yeah, I'm the same way.
if you're going to own a firearm, you should at least be competent in handling it.
I understand your reasoning behind it, but I don't believe in that. You have the right because it is an inalienable right. You have the right to use tools to defend yourself.
What is an inalienable right?
Life.
What are
liberty,
right? What are
pursuit of
rights?
happiness.
Can you show me a right?
Yeah, I'm it right here. These are my rights.
Can you physically show me a right?
Yeah, I'm breathing.
Physically?
Yeah, I'm breathing. I have a right to life. You can't pull the air out of this room and
Sure, I
murder.
can.
You could, but you would murder me.
You're not allowed to.
Which is, that's a crime. But even if it wasn't a crime on the books, that's still you taking away the same opportunity that I have as you. So I think that would be one of the more nuanced ways to define a right is anything you can do, I can do. Right? Seems kind of fair.
You have the right to be an attorney.
You can be your own attorney.
I don't think either of you guys got that movie reference.
Nope.
No.
It's from the remade 22 Jump Street with Jonah Hill and the other guy there,
Channing Tatum?
Yeah.
Oh.
When
What
the
was
captain
that?
asks him to read his Miranda rights, he goes, as he's saying it, he's like, "You have the right to be an attorney," and the captain goes, "You have the right to be an attorney?" Jonah Hill's like, "Well, you do have the right to be an attorney if you want."
I mean,
I think I remember that.
you don't, but you do. I think I've only ever watched that movie once. It was all right. 21 Jump Street was all right. I don't know. The right to drive a vehicle?
Yeah.
I can't think of a yes or no right off the bat because my mind instantly goes to, well, then can we force people to have insurance or register
yes.
the vehicle? Or if it is a right to own a vehicle, Or no.
All right, so let me ask you a question. Can we take away somebody's rights?
Ooh, if they violate other people's rights,
If they abuse it.
if they abuse their rights,
Yeah.
So if somebody told you abused your right of the First Amendment by saying something evil or hateful, could they take that right from you?
prove it in a court of law.
But can they take that right from you?
Well, the First Amendment wouldn't be a good argument.
But
The
it's-
Second
but
Amendment
it's-
would
but
be
it's-
if you use a gun.
But it's
to
still
just
a
go
right.
around killing people.
But it's still a right, though. Can they take that right
well, no, they
from
they
you,
can't
from your freedom of speech?
They can't because they'd have to remove your
So
tongue.
if they can't take that right from you, then driving should be a privilege, because I definitely think people's driving privilege should be revoked if they either can't drive sober or if they can't seem to just drive good at all and they keep getting into accidents or causing problems on the road.
Yeah, your rights can be taken away from you. Felons can't have guns.
So that's
But they do still have a right to defend themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's the only one, because you can't take
Second
away their
Amendment is-
third, fourth, fifth, sixth,
Well,
seventh.
those aren't physical things. You can't. If you don't have that physical thing, they can't take it away from you.
I still think driving should be a privilege, because it's definitely something that should be revoked if you can't prove you can do it responsibly.
A lot of people drive without a license anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I would say a third of people on the road don't have licenses, or they're suspended.
Really?
Or out. Yeah,
a third.
I would say at least a third,
I don't know. That's a big
That's
chunk.
a lot.
quarter. I'm
Still a big
I'd
chunk.
say maybe like eighth, like an eighth of.
even if
people.
that's a lot.
Yeah, but it's a third is. Whew.
I'll go down to a quarter.
I believe in the right to travel unmolested. Like if
That's
I
a weird word to use.
molested, well, meaning you can't be stopped and forced to But that's how it's written. Is you have the right to travel unmolested.
Like you shouldn't use erect in any sentence.
That's just the language that they used.
So about 9% of adult Americans don't have a valid driver's license.
What are they driving?
Well, I mean, if all of these adults, 9% of all adults don't have a driver's license, then I still don't know if that would equate to a quarter of all drivers not having a license.
9% of all adults.
All adults don't have a
So
driver's license.
9% of, let's say, 200 million Americans. Because let's say 150 million are.
And that means all those other Americans would have a driver's license, so only 9% of them.
Well, I guess how many people are on the road?
So that would
less than
actually,
one-tenth,
that would make your
right?
statistic even less if 9% of adult Americans don't have a driver's license. I'm sure not all of them are out driving on the road, so that would make it even less than 9%.
If we were to be lenient and say it's 9% of 200,000, that's 1/20th of the population. So it's still a lot of people, but
5%.
5%. Still a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like if you think about just here in Elmira, 50,000 people, 5%, it's 500.
Elmira's
people
only
daily
got like
driving without
27,000
license.
people.
I wonder if that accounts for people with just permits.
Yeah, there's only like
'Cause a
27,000
lot of
people here,
drive
though.
on their permit.
In Elmira? Mm-hmm. That's weird. I feel like our population has been stagnant for a while.
Oh,
It's
right
been
around
going
the
down. There's
35,000
been a
mark.
lot of people moving out.
That's true. A lot of people have.
What are we
left
at right
New
now?
York. He just said like 27,000.
Oh, 27? Yeah, I think the last time I checked it was like
Oh,
32.
it's even worse than I thought. We're down to 25,852.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
We
'cause
were-
my rent just went up.
We were above 30,000 in 1990, and we stayed above 30,000 until right around 2005. We
And
were
people are having less and less kids right now.
in 2015 we were at 28. Now we're down to 25.
Wow.
So in 6 years, we lost 12, 13%.
Wow. It's not shocking. I think New York
Ithaca's
as a whole has lost about 10% of its
Ithaca's has been slightly increasing over the last several years.
I've known a lot of people that moved to Ithaca from here. So I guess Ithaca's taken all our residents.
I think a lot of 20, 30-ish year old liberals are tired of the conservative views here in Elmira. Because it is a fairly conservative place, more so than other places around
Yeah.
New York, for sure. But back to the driving rights, no. You have a right to travel, but not a right to drive a vehicle. There's so many other options. You could take public transportation. You can fly. You can take a Greyhound. Hell, there's even trains still that run that you can take a train somewhere. So, the
You
right
could
to
do
drive a vehicle.
motorized parasailing from one place to another. I don't even know if you need a license for that.
Motorized parasailing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I watched a video.
thing where
I
you're
watched
just
a
holding
video.
on and
No. The parasailing is like a giant parachute, like much bigger than what you would use skydiving, and you put this big fan on the back of it, similar to like a fan boat, and you can literally thrust yourself up into the air. There was this guy that legally the highest you're allowed to go is 17,500 feet doing something like that. So this guy went right up to the 17,500 foot mark in the video. It was really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, and then you'd be going into like airspace.
Yeah. I've seen, you guys ever seen the movie, like, I think it's called Fly Away Home? I can't remember what those were, but it was like a, you know, paraglide, the old thing that you would see where you're strapped onto it and you're parallel to the glider.
Yeah,
and just
you're
holding
basically
onto
on a
bar.
kite. Yeah.
Yeah.
Barn
This was like, it had the wings of it, but it had a seat like you were sitting in a go-kart, and it was the same concept.
So this
with
is-
a giant fan, kind of like
This might be a little irresponsible, but yeah, you don't need any license, medical certificate, training, or registration to do any paramotoring.
So if you can
Interesting.
essentially fly your own plane,
I'm almost certain you have to have a pilot's license to be allowed to take flight from an airport.
A plane might be different.
well, no, I'm at your own miniature personal plane.
Yeah.
You could do that. Why doesn't everybody do that?
No, because I think there's still controlled airspace. Like if you built a helicopter in your backyard and tried to take flight, I'm sure that's several laws you're breaking.
But if you have a paraglider, a motorized paraglider,
If you have enough land to build like a landing strip,
well, you can land anywhere. They're small. You can land on the road.
but then that's a danger to traffic and drivers. Like,
Well, don't do it when cars are coming.
there's a lot of like, somebody would have to do this and see what happens. I'm not gonna. That's terrifying.
I'm gonna do it.
Shit, if
You
you're
should
good
do
enough,
it.
you can land it even when cars are coming. I recently watched a video of a guy landing like a little single-engine plane on a fucking highway because he was having an emergency, and there was cars on the highway, and he landed it right in the middle perfectly, avoided cars, avoided a telephone line. I was like, damn, it's pretty impressive, man.
I think it would be a little bit different for somebody that's driving like commercially or licensed for a company and has to do that in emergency to some asshole with a single engine. I'm just doing this to prove a point.
Not even really an engine; it's just a giant fan.
Yeah, it's like those swamp boat vans. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, because I remember. So I wonder if you need some kind of pilot's license to be like to fly a glider and things like
A
that.
glider, you do need a license for, yes.
Because it's not a propelled.
It probably
Craft,
depends
so-
on the size of the thing that you're. Because even a glider, if you crash that into something, it's gonna
Oh yeah.
cause damage. But if it's just you,
But I mean that's the
with a
same
kite-
thing with a car, you know. Car is a 1-ton death machine, so
Rolling death traps.
yeah.
So what we got now? The 5th.
Yeah, we would be moving to the 5th.
On to the 5th. No
I'm just gonna plead the 5th. Let's go to the 6th.
No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal cases to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation.
Right there at the end, that's where the eminent domain comes into play. But yeah, Fifth Amendment, you cannot be coerced into like speech to incriminate yourself or others.
So, like,
that's
does a
pretty
wife
straightforward.
does like a wife kind of fall under the Fifth Amendment when like a wife can't testify against her husband in certain cases if charges are being brought on the husband? Because Amjad has informed me that like they can't.
Do they refuse to testify against their husband, or they
No, it's
can't
that
be brought?
I'm pretty sure Amjad told me like they legally can't make the wife like testify.
Well, nobody can be forced to testify. If I'm witness to a crime, I can't be forced by the police to make a statement or be part of a trial. Yeah, I don't believe you can be forced to take the witness stand. You can say no. You can say no. I want nothing to do with this.
So it's called spousal testimonial privilege, also known as marital privilege, is a legal rule that prevents one spouse from testifying against the other in criminal or related proceedings. Either spouse can invoke the privilege to prevent their testimony. The privilege is intended to protect the institution of marriage and marital harmony by keeping spouses from having to reveal private details about their relationship or family life.
So I'm assuming if one is on the stand and somebody were to ask a question pertaining to that, they can say, "I'm not gonna answer that."
Which seems like it would kind of fall under this Fifth Amendment.
Yeah.
What was the conversation we were having before the podcast where you said save it for the podcast?
Ooh.
Was that about the Fifth or was it about the Sixth?
Man, that was a good one.
I think it was about the Fifth, having to do with Miranda rights and things like that.
I think
A lot of people get the Miranda rights thing wrong. Yes, you do have to be read your Miranda rights, but not until like you've been officially charged. Most of the time, when they put you in the cruiser,
they get it out of the way.
yeah, they get it out of the way because they don't want to forget it, because the arresting officer has to be the one to do it. The one who's going to be filing the paperwork has to be the one to do the Miranda rights. Once you are officially in police custody in the jail where the police officers are, they do, because they're detaining you against your will. You have no way to escape. So they do have to read you your rights. But you can just not say anything ever. Like, you have no obligation to answer any questions that a police officer asks you.
Yeah.
Even if they show up to your house and start saying, "Hey, is somebody home?" You could be like, "Get off my property." It's as simple as that. I do
They don't
kind of
like
wish.
that.
Yeah. I would have abused this when I was younger if I had known better. But when we were kids having house parties, I wish I knew that you could just tell a cop to fuck off. Like,
Sometimes they just charge in your home anyway.
Yeah, you do got to be careful. You know, the whole thing with them putting their foot in the door.
Yeah.
That's actually been under contention recently, where some judges have actually started ruling against that, where if an officer doesn't have a warrant and they put their foot in the door, that's basically invasion. Like, they can't. A lot of judges have been
impeding you.
ruling against that.
Imagine if your door is closed and they just push you out of the way and come barging in. I saw that in 2000. I saw that in
camera.
We didn't. We weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
Cops
That's why
showed
I
up,
hope.
knocked on the door. The homeowner went out, or well, not the homeowner, but who was renting there. He went out, closed the door behind him, was talking to the police. Next thing we know, the door comes flying open, and the police are just barging in, starting to walk around the house looking for shit.
He might have given them consent.
No, he didn't. That's the whole problem. That's why he was upset. That's why I'm bringing it up, because he didn't give them consent. He was even telling them when they were in there to get the fuck out of his house. And they were searching. Luckily, because he had some roommates and, He did. The kid did sell some weed at the time, but he had a padlock on his bedroom door, so nobody would go in his bedroom door.
Yeah.
Man, the police were prodding for him to open that up, and he's like, "No, I told you can't even come in my house. Yet here we are."
Yeah. This is one of the. This is why I believe cell phones are also like a tool, but a danger for people. It is a very useful tool for people who do want to protect themselves because we have recording devices in our pockets at all time. Just like how police officers have body cameras. The original idea was good, but when an officer can turn their body camera on and off at will,
Well, they're not supposed to. now they're not
Yeah.
supposed
They
to.
malfunction.
yeah, they malfunction a lot.
I'm just gonna wear a GoPro everywhere I go
But
from now on.
you can buy a body camera off Amazon.
You can buy
right
those.
now,
You can buy
so-
those Ray-Ban sunglasses,
yeah.
or even the clear ones that have the little camera right in the nose.
But
Record everything.
this is something that I definitely tell everybody. Anytime you have an interaction with any kind of public official, especially a police officer, just for your own safety as well, because you don't know if you're going to get a good cop or if you're going to get the cop that has severe problems and just wants to find somebody to fuck up. Pull your camera out and record the whole thing. Especially in your home, you want to make sure you have on camera that you're telling the police officers, you're not allowed to search my house, you're not coming in, if you don't have a warrant, you need to leave, get off my property, so that if they do force their way into your house or they violate your rights because they believe they have the power to do so, listen, your best option is to just comply once they do that. Like, if they force their way into your house, comply.
Yeah.
But make sure that you let them know, hey, I don't consent to any of this. You're violating my rights. You're breaking the law. I don't consent to any of this. This is a strict violation of everything. But trying to fight them is not going to get you anywhere.
At the time, you
Yeah.
do it afterwards.
Yeah,
Sue
fight them in
them
court.
afterwards. Yeah, do it in court.
But there needs to be more punishment for cops that break the law.
Yeah.
Because if all they're going to get is like a 2-week paid vacation, they're just going to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Cops that do that and are found guilty of like violating your rights need to be fired immediately. Oh, what's that? You violated somebody's 4th, 5th Amendment right. You broke into their house. You searched their car unlawfully. You're off the force. You cannot be trusted as a civil servant if you believe you're just there to abuse your power.
But it takes 8 or 9 instances and 3 people dead, and then
Yeah.
they just
And
fire
then
them. And
you have the unions inside the police department, the internal investigation units. Oh yeah, we the government have found the government to have done no wrongdoing. Thank you, goodbye.
Police
What?
need to be held to the same high standard I was held to when I was in the Marine Corps. If you do something and fuck up, you're going to be punished.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gotten to the point where I understand back in the day that these things were put in place to protect police officers from certain things because they needed it. But now the wrong people have found their way into these organizations because it's a position of power. People recognize it's a position of power. People want power.
so they can abuse it.
Yeah.
They can steal the drugs, sell the drugs.
And
Yeah.
the University of Kentucky did a study to counter the Stanford prison experiment. And what they found out was it's not in human nature to treat people badly. It's that people with bad nature flocked to a position such as being a cop where they could abuse power. The Stanford prison experiment, I don't know how much you guys know about that,
I've never
where
heard.
they had people volunteer to be prisoners, and then people volunteer to be
I watched a whole video on this.
volunteer
That
to
was
be the
super
actual like correctional officers. And it didn't take long for the people that volunteered to be correctional officers to start abusing their power and mistreating the prisoners, even though it was just an experiment.
And they weren't supposed to hit him or anything, but
Yup.
they were physically abusing him.
So Stanford
Really?
concluded that it was human nature that when people were put in a position of power that they would abuse it. Well, the University of Kentucky recently did a study that actually countered that, and they actually vetted the people that were going to be the guards and the prisoners, and the people that were vetted to be guards didn't abuse their power because they were good-natured people. So it actually showed that people with ill intentions or people that already have a predisposition to abuse power, bullies basically, are attracted to positions such as a police officer or correctional officer because they can abuse that power over others.
That's why the stereotype is the bully in high school becomes the cop.
Yep.
I want to know I want links to that because I've never heard of these studies. And you said Alabama was.
It was
or
the first
Kentucky?
one was the
Kentucky.
Stanford prison experiment, prison experiment, and then University of Kentucky.
Stanford?
Yeah.
Stanford College?
Yep, Stanford University, and then University of Kentucky just did the experiment and basically disproved what Stanford was saying about that it's human nature to abuse power.
As long as the vetting process was done.
Correct. That it's
I
not
wanna
just
know
normal
what-
human nature to abuse power, that when good-hearted people are put in positions of power, they won't abuse it, and that it's the people that will abuse it that are attracted to those positions of power because they know they can abuse that power.
So people that want to be politicians want to be politicians for a reason. So
Probably most of them, yeah.
I would want to know what the vetting process for that is. But it's very interesting that you brought that up because I watched a video of a study done in the 1960s, a social experiment to determine the willingness of people to follow authority. And the experiment was they took just a normal person off the street. There was a test group of 10 people, 20 people in total. 10 were normal people. Another 10 were paid actors, right? So they would give the study group a series of questions and a buzzer, and then the actors were put on like the opposite side of a wall. They would ask the question, and if the person, the actor, got the answer wrong, they would get electrocuted. And a person in the lab coat, presumed authority, would say, shock them. And the person would just shock them. And every time they got the answer wrong, they would increase the voltage. To eventually, a lot of these people, I think it was 8 out of 10 people, would eventually get to the point where, like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, can we stop, please? And the person who was in the position of authority would say, no, he'll be fine. And they continued to push the button. They just kept doing it because they were being told to. Mm-hmm. So that was a study that was theorized because it was the why did German soldiers and German prisoners do this thing? Why were people so willing to do it? And it was the allure to authority or the
blind obedience.
Yeah, blind obedience. There was a book written about it. I think it was 100 Good Men, and it was I haven't read it yet, but I've heard like Jack Posobiec talk about it before. It's a book, I believe, called 100 Good Men, and it's a true story of like volunteer firefighters out of Poland who were sent to a concentration camp, and they just followed orders. But they were good men, but then they turned into monsters. They just kept following orders. So it's human beings
Was
are
that book
interesting.
fiction or was that a real?
I believe it's based off a true story. Let me. Vernon's 100 Good Men, a bunch of guys who give a damn. I'll look further into it. That might not be what it's called, but I see a lot of things for 100 Good Men. Maybe it's just called The Good Men.
They're just men.
We got to get you a new keyboard, man. That thing is loud.
It's kind of old. It's kind of an old keyboard. And it's kind of close to the microphone, but
I have a couple
mine's
out there.
pretty close. Mine's pretty close too, and you can barely hear it. Gotta get you one of them quiet
laptop
ones. Yeah, that's what I mean. You can find regular keyboards that are just as quiet as a laptop.
yeah.
I have a couple.
It was
out there.
further
We can test them
away.
out.
Probably won't be as
I have
bad,
a Hello
but-
Kitty one.
Hello Kitty, my favorites. My favorites. I'll find the information. Sometimes I wish I need like 1,000 bookmarks. I need to learn how to bookmark things properly. But I'll get that information for sure. I've
Carry
heard
a
plenty
journal.
of people.
Carry a journal with you, with some sticky notes, and just stick them to the
Some
pages.
weirdo can find it and read it. No thanks. Oh yeah. Are we still on the 5th?
Yeah.
Yeah, Fifth Amendment. It covers a lot. A lot of people that just say I invoke the Fifth don't realize everything that is actually covered under the Fifth. But basically, it's you can't be coerced to do things against your will. You know, if you want to just get down to the nitty gritty of it. You want to read the sixth one, Adam?
I can do
On
that.
to the sixth.
Sixth Amendment. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusations, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense.
So you said public trial, right?
Correct.
That everybody that's convicted should have a public trial.
Yeah, I wish
which
they
is-
would have had Epstein do a public one.
That's where I was going with it because
And
there
Ghislaine
were
Maxwell as well.
yeah the Maxwell. There was no cameras allowed, and they didn't. Nobody was allowed.
That's up to purview of the judge. The judge can determine
it
whether or not.
I mean, it shouldn't be like that.
But
Still want to see that list.
in the same breath,
Well, they gave us like 5 names that we already
Yeah.
knew about.
but in the same breath, Donald Trump's Sixth Amendment right has been abused twice here in New York with E. Jean Carroll and now with the hush money. Like, it clearly means nothing.
Yeah.
It means nothing.
It's a political trial.
Yeah. I do find it interesting and tiresome that people are running with the, you're really going to elect a convicted felon? Yep, absolutely. We don't care anymore. We don't care. Call him whatever you want.
Well, they shouldn't
we
be
don't
felonies.
care.
Didn't they bump them up? From
We
misdemeanors?
still don't know
there's-
what the felony is.
Yeah,
we
he's-
don't know what it is. He was
That's
charged
right.
with a felony, but it hasn't been determined what that felony
That's
is.
right, they
First
didn't-
time
That-
in history.
They didn't
That
put him on the crime.
alone is a political hit job. This is Putin. Putin taking out his political rivals. How are you charged with a felony when they never address the felony?
You mean Zelensky?
What's the crime? What crime? We don't even know what the crime is.
What are they saying it is? Or are
They
they,
don't
just
know.
saying 34 felony counts?
Yeah, they don't
That's
know. They're
Interesting.
It was misdemeanors, and the only way that they could charge him, because it was past the statute of limitations,
Yeah.
was to charge something with a felony. If he was found guilty of the felony, the 34 misdemeanors would then be charged as well. So in order for him to be tried for this, there has to be a felony charge. We don't know what felony he committed.
They're probably trying to come up with it as we speak.
Yes, absolutely. You can't be tried for a crime and not be given the crime.
Well, you can in one of the 3 kinds of trials. So there's a civil trial, and then there's a criminal trial, and then there's a political trial, which this seems like it is. And in a political trial, it's no holds barred.
Yeah, there's no rules. There's no rules in a political trial. But there's no felonies in a civil trial, is there? Civil cases
Yeah,
are
I'm sure
like
it's probably
me-
got to. Yeah, it's got to probably be criminal for felony.
Yeah,
for sure.
Civil trial would be like me versus Jesse. I owe him $100 and he wants the $100.
I gave you a camera that you were gonna pay me for next
that's
week,
civil.
and yeah,
It's like citizen versus citizen. As to criminal is the state. You committed a crime against the state. The crime commits states against us all the
every
time.
day.
Yes, this is absolutely what's happening to Donald Trump has been a political facade. And people that are going to vote for him, this is why people aren't quite running with the he's a felon yet. Nobody cares. Absolutely nobody cares. Anybody who has decided to vote for him, call him whatever you want. Like, unless a 100% factual video comes out of him, like, doing something to a child, he's going to get voted for.
Yeah,
You're not going to change anybody's
And the only
mind.
reason people even say that in any capacity that he's a pedo is because he was on Epstein's list.
Yeah.
Which we don't know why he was on there, and he was only on there,
Yeah.
what, 3 times or 2 times or something?
Not
Yeah.
many.
But there was a lot of things where he kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago because he said he was being creepy with kids. He has been seen several times. For anybody who is on Epstein's list, there is a little bit of leeway because
Tiny.
he was
tiny
a
bit.
millionaire.
Yeah.
He was involved in circles. Of course, he would know people. You're not going to be a millionaire or billionaire and not know people.
Yeah, and not all flights went to his island.
Yeah, so the flights that went to his island, I would say more than twice. Those are the ones we got to be looking at.
Yeah.
Like if you went to the island once, if you went there twice, if you went there 3 times, you knew what was happening.
Yeah,
you absolutely knew.
You're going there for a reason. I don't think it's for brunch.
Yeah,
You go to Epstein's Island more than twice, you're playing with him.
yeah, absolutely.
Just like the rule, you shake it more than twice, you're playing with it.
Yep.
You guys ever
Or the
seen? You
three
guys ever
strike
seen
rule.
the movie The Candidate with Will Ferrell and Zach Galifianakis?
I don't like Will Ferrell.
Okay, it's fair enough.
Same.
I don't.
It's fair enough.
I
I
hate
don't
how
watch-
he plays
So-
stupid every single role.
So in this movie, Zach Galifianakis' character, which I'm pretty sure this was based off something that really happened, but Zach Galifianakis shoots Will Ferrell in the leg while they're out hunting and goes up in the polls. It kind of what like Trump going up in the polls after being convicted reminds me of. It's like, yeah, these people they don't care anymore. They're sick of seeing the way the country is ran. That yes, they're willing to vote for that man because he will run the country better.
Yeah. And I think it's really opening people's eyes. He was an outsider that came into politics, and now the machine is trying to destroy him. But the machine literally tries to protect everybody who is a part of the machine.
Yeah, they don't.
So
want,
if the machine is trying to destroy you, that's a good thing.
I seriously
means you're-
question anybody that the machine's trying to destroy by using obviously the mainstream media to help destroy that person.
yeah,
so
Alex Jones
For sure.
even
for
Joe
sure.
even Joe Rogan
Rogan's getting,
During-
they're starting to hate him too.
during
I mean,
the
they
situation
They did.
during the
ivermectin.
Pandusky. That's what I'm gonna call it from now on is the Pandusky.
Yeah. But
But yeah,
they-
when his doctor had him take the horse dewormer, the news even what they did with his pictures is they like made him look more gray. They
yeah.
photoshopped
they made him
make
look
him
sick.
sick.
sickly, even though his doctor told him to take the dewormer.
Yeah,
I feel like I can't say
ivermectin.
the name of it.
It's ivermectin.
Yeah.
It's actually a
I was
Nobel
just trying
Prize.
to refrain from saying the name because I feel like YouTube shadow bans videos
Oh.
that yeah.
No, I think we're allowed to say it.
Shadow banning's a real thing though. They may allow you to say it, but your video can be shadow banned, which
Yeah.
means it's moved way further down in the algorithm.
Yeah, I can see that. So, Ivor itself, it won a Nobel Peace Prize, and it's been used around the world
For a lot of
for
things.
a lot of things.
Antiviral,
it's an
antifungal,
anti-parasitic,
anti-parasitic,
So,
and
the fact that they
used for
went
4 or 5 things.
the fact that they went after Rogan so hard for doing what his doctor told him to do, to where they used the same tools against Rogan that they were using against Trump. They made him look a certain way. They made Trump look more orange.
Yeah,
They made
That's-
Rogan
that's
look
kinda
more
funny.
sick.
That's kinda
It
funny,
was.
though.
yeah.
Yeah,
When you
but
look
that's
at
where
I'm
the
not gonna
whole
lie.
orange man bad.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
look at CNN broadcasts next to a Fox,
They literally turned up the contrast.
Yeah, he would look orange and then
That's
he'd be like,
crazy, though.
Well, I
That-
mean, he has a little bit of a spray tan, but like, not bad.
It 100% proves the manipulation by news organizations. That's one of the things that I used to actually pull one of my family members out of believing the bullshit. I went straight to YouTube, I pulled up the video, and I was like, look, this is CNN, this is Fox, these are the 2 separate colors, this is the CNN edit, this is the Fox edit. CNN cut out most of what he was saying just to make a headline.
Yeah.
Fox showed not all of it, but a majority of it, and they were like,
To where you can get more.
is this
context.
real? I said, why wouldn't it be real? Of course they're trying to affect your decision making. Why wouldn't they want you to think a certain way? You really think these multi-billion-dollar corporations don't have a plan or an agenda? You think they don't want you to think a certain thing? Like, come on. That was a wake-up call for some people.
Mix that in with the electromagnetic manipulation of nervous system through screens that was part of the original TV patent. So like
What?
you ever notice like when you were a kid sometimes you'd be watching TV and you would just be zoned out, like you couldn't break out of that zone out?
Yeah, and I remember like the old commercials, kids would get like the swirlies in the eyes, kind of hypnotized thing. Yeah, but it was a what? Well, wasn't it the same thing with the inception of the radio? Was one of the key factors as to why Hitler got so popular so fast. It was through radio. Before the First World War, you had like telegraphs or letters or newspapers, but the technology for radio frequencies was invented like halfway through the First World War, and then radios became common just before World War II. So people all over Germany could hear one of his speeches live.
So U.S. Patent 6506148B2, nervous system manipulation by electromagnetic fields from monitors. Makes you wonder how this kind of technology has been weaponized, seeing how we all have a screen in front of us every single day.
Well, they
How
are
is-
shooting out signals.
Yeah, how is that manipulating our nervous system?
Probably a lot.
I think it's bullshit. We have a whole system in our body that makes you nervous. Psst. Nobody wants to be nervous.
Anxiety. That actually quickly reminds me of a musical meme I saw. It's just the musical notes for silence, but then it gets faster. So it's just silence, but it keeps getting faster. And it was like, this is making me very nervous. It's just like silence, 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 silence. It's like, I can see it. That's a funny joke.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, these devices, they definitely manipulate things. It is very weird that we are in a three-dimensional realm, but there is still like a fourth dimensional that we can't perceive at all except for through certain experimentation.
Yeah,
And
forces
that's like
beyond most people's.
Yeah, like magnetic fields, UV rays, any kind of radiation or things like that we can't physically see, but
Gravity.
they're very clearly in play. So it's interesting. It's very interesting to think that these were things that we've only recently in human history have supposedly learned about. We know them, we can study them and experiment. You can do an experiment at home with a magnet and like metal shards, and you can see the pulling field of a magnet. But yet there's still a lot of people out there that don't think that there's more beyond that. It's like, clearly there is. It's very obvious.
There could be a whole reality all around us right now that we just can't perceive because we can only hear certain frequencies. We can only see a small spectrum of light. So that's always something I've thought about. Is
Kinda
there
like
like
Danny
a
Phantom?
is there almost like a whole nother reality that we just can't perceive all around us? Unless maybe the only way to perceive that reality is to smoke some dimethyltryptamine.
Could be.
Maybe.
It's just one of those. I heard an interesting theory on the three dimensions that we're a part of. It's spiritual, physical. Oh man, I am so terrible with remembering things. The spiritual dimension, the physical dimension, and perception, like perceptive reality. So like physical, we're in our corporeal bodies. This is the physical realm. Spiritual, how we can like our consciousness, how we come to be, how we experience things. And then perceptual is just like how we see the world around us. It's our reality, but we're all experiencing it at the same time.
I can kind of see what you're.
So like
painting that you're.
Yeah, the fourth is beyond that, and is our death actually us going to the next set of planes? It's interesting. Man, this went from amendments to spiritual conversations real quick.
And yeah, it always goes a little all over the place.
We get distracted. We'll get better throughout the years.
Well, no, that's good.
It can be. Yeah.
People get bored of the same thing over and over.
Well, then let's mix it up.
Moving on to the 7th.
I think we should just do like the 4th, 5th,
Oh, I just closed it out.
17th. Let's mix things
Straight
up
to
a
the
bit.
19th.
Yeah.
Abolish the 19th. I'm all for abolishing the 19th. And I
What
can't-
is the 7th?
So, the 7th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution in suits at common law where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law. Quick question before we get into that. How much would $20 from like 1770s be worth now?
I don't care. It should only be $20. it's written plainly. Bail,
$20 in, let's say, like 1800 compared to 2024. I probably
I'm
wrote that
saying
out. $497.
no. It's gonna be more than that.
The 1.45 inflation rate means $20 in 1800 is equivalent to $947.70
Oh,
today.
you said 447.
Yeah, 497.70.
You just said 947.
$497.70.
Yeah, I don't think that's right.
$500. $20 inflation rate to today's $500. You don't think so?
No,
I mean, hey,
I think your
that's what
Google's
it's
broke.
saying.
I think your Google's broken.
I'm using Brave, so maybe.
Oh, that makes sense. They don't know anything.
They don't know anything. Is that what you got? Wow. From the trends of this.
Yeah, $1 is 65 cents back then. So you would times 65 by 20. 10, that'd be like $1,400.
Mine's showing me $667.12.
All right. So far, we've got two totals.
But I also typed in 1971, which is
Okay.
when the 7th Amendment was ratified.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I just put in
today,
1800.
It would be
so.
$65.82 times 20. So times.
You got a calculator.
$13 or $1,313, somewhere around there.
That's a huge difference from what? Cumulative price change 2,388%. I'm looking at the trends right here, and it looks like right around 1955 things start getting a little out of control, and then 1970 shit just looks like a mountain. It's just so yay, inflation. That's not robbery at all. Yeah, the 7th Amendment is written in a weird way, but that's basically just what your right to take people to
Basically,
civil court.
just your right to have a trial by jury.
Yeah, for civil matters, really. I mean, yeah, that shouldn't really be I guess it does have to be an amendment. Otherwise, people would be like, well, that's not common sense.
I say abolish this one.
The 7th?
Straight to the trash.
Why?
Juries are stupid.
Oh, juries.
I think that's what we were talking about.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
shouldn't
yeah.
have juries.
Or I haven't thought about it enough.
There should be professional jurors. That's what we were talking about. I knew we would figure it out.
But if there were professional jurors who were getting paid, that means they could be paid off.
Nobody should be able to know who they are. They should be. Shouldn't be.
But then,
out.
how do you find them?
What?
Then how do you find them to use them in a court of law? The judge has like a Rolodex of people who were, right?
Well, yeah.
Even
though people wouldn't be able to see them in court, people would know who they are.
Would there be individual agencies that hire professional jurors? Would the district attorney's office have like a Rolodex of specified jurors.
You wouldn't be able to pay them off because you would get it would be a professional juror selected at random. I guess you could pay every single one off, but
especially if they did something where like jurors traveled throughout each state, like, and then they're
Oh,
switching.
that would be such a sweet gig.
Because then they're switching cities for where they're actually being a jury at every time.
Yeah, that would be
because if you got some random
gig.
professional juror out of Illinois to come to New York.
Yeah, and who wouldn't want to travel for
Well,
work?
isn't that that's a stipulation? Because the saying "jury by peers" is like, it's not a peer as in the country as a whole. It's a peer of your community specifically.
Yeah, but what if some of the peers in my community are freaking idiots?
Well, I'm
Don't
saying
commit crimes.
get rid of the whole jury system we have.
Yeah,
now.
but what
It
if I'm
shouldn't
being
be-
tried for a
it
crime
shouldn't
that I
be
didn't
peers.
commit, and then I got a jury of idiots that can't think critically?
I see.
'Cause
I see where you're coming from.
What percent of the population do you think that is?
Competent, understands the law,
Yes,
knows that,
that-
you're innocent until proven guilty?
Yes.
None. Not enough. It's definitely not enough. But that goes hand in hand with our government's refusal to educate the population properly. Though it was our fault to think that our government cared.
Well,
you
the
know?
government shouldn't be educating people
Offering
because they're. I don't trust the government to tell people what they think they should know.
Yeah.
That just seems like a recipe for disaster.
But if the government is to offer education to people, it should be very specific things like,
Yes.
this is how you do your taxes. This is how you...
yeah, our whole school system needs to go.
Yeah.
We should get rid of the entire thing we have and start from scratch. It shouldn't be paid for by China.
Yeah. It should be strictly paid for, like, school voucher. I'm all for school voucher, school choice. If you as a parent have a child, you will get a percentage of money, a voucher, and then you get to choose where the child goes to school. And if the education costs $500 more than the voucher, you pay the difference.
Yeah.
Simple as that. But that also means there probably would be an increase in taxes.
Well, I think all schools should be private and kids shouldn't have to go to school.
The way things are going, I agree. I disagree strongly because I do believe education is important.
Education is
But
important, yeah.
Education as it stands,
but
yeah, what's the point?
being educated by a public school is
trash.
And
garbage.
this day and age,
Yeah, that's why
it's
the
not
trope.
worth going.
That's why the trope is kids can't wait to get out of school. Like, school sucks. I can't wait to leave. Everybody in here sucks. They're all bullies. Yeah, when you surround children by children, they act like children. When you surround children by adults, they start acting like adults. So, yeah, public education is trash. Absolutely. Absolutely. Adam, your thoughts on public education? Garbaggio?
I mean, I definitely think, public education has its uses. It does, at least in the beginning, teach us the basics. But as we get older through our public education, I feel like high school should be like pre-college. Like, you should start finding out what kind of career you want to do or what type of, craft excites you. And by the time, you hit your senior year, you shouldn't be really questioning what you want to learn or do. I don't know. I feel like our public school system doesn't exactly help students identify their strengths.
Oh, for sure.
And I feel like that's something a school system should definitely do is try to help students identify their strengths to help better set them up for success in their future. But I also get that in public school, it's very hard to try to help each individual student identify their own strengths when you've got 20 plus students in each class. So it's almost like there's not time to help the students do that. So ultimately, I feel like that should fall back partially on the parents for help their children identify their strengths. But
Yeah, because I definitely agree with that. When I was in high school, I knew nothing about college. They didn't. None of the.
Except for you had to go.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
the narrative.
They didn't. They didn't really. They didn't really say how you get in. They
don't prepare you for things.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't go.
I
didn't
also
go to community,
I also believe that there's not enough.
and I'm glad I didn't go. Because
Yeah,
college is
it's pretty
worthless too.
garbage. I believe there's not enough courses in the education that is offered. Why aren't trade skills offered?
They are to a degree,
But there should be more.
they should go more in depth with
There shouldn't be a specialized school that you have to be accepted into, BOCES, right? It should just be maybe a separate school on its own, but there should be more trades. Masonry, electricity, to be an electrician, a plumber.
even
different.
that's kind of what I meant by high school should be like a pre-college. Like you should start, looking into that stuff and diving into it and figuring out what you like at that age.
Yeah.
There should be more apprenticeships.
Apprenticeship jobs. There should be non-higher educational trade learning.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be a carpenter or something, there should be true apprenticeship learning fields in a school. If you want to be an architect, if you really believe that that could be something, there should be a beginner's course for architecture in high school where they then say, you've got the basics, now you can go to college. You only do half the time because you've already got the basics learned. Now you only have to learn half of it. Go to college for 2-3 years, and then boom, you've got everything you need. Yeah, public education in America is trash. Like,
Well, I mean, it's designed to
be
put people into factories
yeah.
and to obey their
We did
rulers.
cover that before,
We
right?
did, yeah.
Like where the original design of American public education was actually a Prussian model because it was designed during the Industrial Revolution. So that's also why there's a weird connection between children rights and child labor laws, because before the Great Depression and the Industrial Revolution, if you were a child born into a family, most likely that family had a trade skill, so you would learn that trade. As the trade started dying, there was no public education. Kids still needed to do something. And because poverty was like the norm, the kids still needed to learn an income. So they went to go work at these very dangerous industrial jobs. Then and then child labor laws came into practice.
Yeah,
oh, you're a kid?
7 years old.
You're a kid, you can't work. So now what? You've got thousands of kids roaming the streets not being able to do anything. Okay, let's put all of them in this box and teach them to be good little boys and girls. That was a big problem. And we're definitely seeing the repercussions from it. Like our generation, I think
I think we should put the kids back to work. Everything's so expensive. We need that extra income in the home.
What's the meme? The kids yearn for the mine because of Minecraft. They're always digging. The
I don't think I've seen that
for
meme.
the mines. They yearn for it.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that meme.
Do you think?
Especially boys.
Do you think?
Boys need the physical activity.
They do
kids-
need something to
We do.
just exert all
We
that
just
energy
do.
that they have.
Like to run out in a field and just swing a scythe at wheat all day.
So fun. I used to have a scythe.
Just
And-
having that kind of physical activity where you
was
don't have to be caught up in your thoughts. You can just work, learn structure and discipline instead of sitting down in fluorescent light bulbs, listening to one idiot try to tell you that the LGBTQ are your friends and you need to recognize how they feel for the day and don't forget the kitty litter box in the corner. No.
Do you think kids should have the option to work?
Yes. But only... Yeah.
As long as it's not
Yeah.
in coal mines
Yeah.
or something ridiculous.
Yeah. Like if a kid wants to work in fast food, I don't see why they would want to. But if they wanted to, yeah. They could be a server, or they could do general maintenancing like cleaning up the store or things like that. Even...
And do you think there should be an age limit?
I don't see a 10-year-old being able to, it being a good idea for a 10-year-old to like work a deep fryer.
Well, no,
But
you
flipping
can't.
burgers?
I don't think you can do that until you're 18.
Right. But even that, I'm pretty sure a 16-year-old can work a deep fryer, and the first time they
maybe
burn
a little bit
themselves, they're going to learn it's a bad idea. You're like, don't screw around with it. But even a 10-year-old could flip a burger.
Yeah.
Like, spatula, flip.
Yeah, I was making my own food
Like,
at 10.
Yeah.
I was using the stove, the oven.
It's not an
I
incredibly
was using an
dangerous
easy
job.
bake oven at 6. Beat that.
Yeah.
Easy Bake, I had one of them.
But they're not dangerous or hard jobs. But they could also do communal work. You could very easily gather up a bunch of kids and go de-weed a park.
Like clean. I was gonna say clean a park.
Yeah,
like,
clean a park. De-weed a
'cause that's-
football field.
Yeah, super easy. There's nothing dangerous about it.
A lot of things did change with the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, I was saying more like bringing your kid to work and having them help out.
Yeah, something like that should be fine if you own your own business or
Yeah,
something like that.
that's more or less where I was going with.
But it starts with the education of the children at home first, because right now, with the way kids are, that wouldn't be possible. You would have a little shithead brat screaming about where their tablet is and how bored they are.
Oh well, yeah.
It would have to change over a couple of generations after we as a society start teaching kids to be respectful, have discipline, and act like adults at an earlier age. This whole thing where kids are kids until they're 21, no. You're practically an adult when you're 16.
Yeah.
Like, you have a functioning brain where you might not make the right decisions all the time, but you can definitely discern what is a right decision.
Yeah, because if even 14-year-olds, if they can be tried as adults, like when they do a heinous crime, I mean, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, and you can definitely have the you have the mental capacity to understand how to operate a lawnmower, how to work a grill, like use a thermometer.
Yeah, because once you're 2 years old
easy.
and you touch a stove, you know it's hot.
Yeah.
You don't do that again.
You don't stick the fork in the light socket a second time. You just don't do it.
Well, sometimes the first time is the last time.
Yeah, sometimes. No, they're surge protectors on like all of them now, so you barely get zapped now.
Yeah.
So
I got shocked once.
yeah. Back in the day,
I lost
before they had
feeling
like
in my
the
fingertip for a couple years.
couple of years. Would you stick a penny or was it? Because copper is a lot more conductive. Like a fork isn't as conductive, but a penny, that copper is so conductive.
It was a extension cord that was part of it was broke,
Frayed
and
off.
I touched the bare wire, and it like burnt my fingertip, and I couldn't feel anything in my fingertip for probably 4 or 5 years.
That was severe nerve damage. That's what you did. Oh man,
My finger would get ice cold every once in a while.
I could see it. Yeah, nerve damage is no joke for sure. But
Let's move on to the 8th. The 8th one's pretty short and simple. The 8th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution: excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted.
this kind of
That's a little too broad. What do they mean by excessive?
yeah, but this kind of falls under the thing where, as a whole, you'll find more people who are willing to like abuse power or, not so kind-hearted as to the cruel and unusual. If we have an amendment that says that you can't treat people cruelly and unusual,
Yeah,
then
but what
that's
he's
kind
asking,
of like a rule of majority thing.
what he's asking is like, what is
Excessive,
defined as an excessive fine?
the law. It's whoever's writing the law.
Yeah, I'm
it
saying
changes over time.
How can you
how
define
can they
what's
interpret
excessive
it?
for a
Like,
fine?
there should be some kind of guideline.
Yeah. I think it should be like a lot of European countries where it's not a fixed
It's based
price,
on how much you make.
based on income.
Yeah, because if
So if a billionaire speeds oh, you're paying 4% of your income, they're going to think twice about
Yeah.
speeding instead of just $100.
Because if the only punishment to a crime is a fine, it's only a crime for the poor.
Yes. Yeah, I've always liked that saying. Yeah. It's just a crime for the poor. That's not exactly how it goes, but it is like that, right? Isn't it worded a little bit differently?
Oh,
or
I
maybe
don't know.
I've heard it differently.
It's basically stating like if you've got money, you can break
Yeah, you can
certain
break the
laws
law.
and get away with certain things.
And if you have a lot of money, you can get away with murder.
Talking to you, Miss Clinton. But yeah.
She's
it
never
is-
murdered anybody
Oh, sure. She hasn't, but
That we know of.
it's hard to
that
find.
we know of. I mean, she may have eaten another human being. I don't know.
She probably has. I mean, you would be hard pressed to find another person that has had 57 associates who have committed suicide, one of which hanging themselves from a tree and shooting themselves three times in the back.
Tied to a tree.
Tied to a tree, hands behind their back, and shotgun wounds to the back. Yeah.
And
Oh,
had three
def-
times.
Definitely suicide. How can you not rule that a suicide? That's pretty
Three
obvious.
times. Or twice.
Obvious suicide.
Obviously. Yeah, I think bail and fines should be based on income.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That makes sense.
But that could also eventually go the opposite. Like if you're incredibly poor or homeless, okay, I'm just going to keep committing crimes because I have to pay you $1 because I literally earn nothing. Cool. I'll
Well,
steal.
it could go up each time.
Yeah, there would have to be some kind of. It would have to be definitely looked at.
First offense is like 5% of one of your paychecks. Second, 15. Third, 30.
Oh, it could be it has to be a set amount. But if your income is above that amount, then it goes by percentage of income. So if you
So like a minimum amount.
if you get caught
Minimum
doing something,
fine.
it's $100 fine. But if 10% of your income equals more than that $100, you pay the percentage. That way, like homeless people are literally not just walking around breaking crimes because they can just
Yeah.
Yeah,
not
you
pay
got to
fines.
you got to
Well,
have
once
a
you do something so many times, they just put you in prison anyway.
you got to have a minimum
Well,
extortion
they should.
limit though.
They should. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there definitely has to be a minimum. See, we talk about things like this all the time. We're practically coming up with the laws
Yeah,
to
you-
fix
We
the
should.
system.
They
can't
should just
just-
hire us to write all the laws.
You can't just extort people without setting a minimum level for that extortion.
Yeah. And it should be the people extorting the politician. Oh, that's right. People are extorting politicians.
Or it could be. I was going to say it could be up to the jury on what the punishment could be.
But under your rule, there are no juries.
No, professional. There should be professional juries.
There should be a wheel of punishment, kind of like in the Avatar episode when they spin his wheel and his punishment would have been boiled in oil.
Ooh, what if the jury were just AI? Like
No.
when it gets to the point where they're smart enough. No?
No.
At least one positive with
no
that is
Futurama
at least
episode?
one positive I could see with that is there would be no emotion involved in the decision making.
Yeah, it would be completely unbiased. It would be strictly rule of law.
And then it's like, I'm going to malfunction slightly, and you get put to death.
Hey, that's
what
God's
the
will,
AI
man.
said. That's what we got to do.
Hey, that's better than letting it be some crazy New York City extremists who say, yeah, I can be impartial with their fingers crossed behind their back, you know? I would rather it be an accidental malfunction than malicious intent. And right now what we're seeing in courts is malicious intent.
You wouldn't. Well, yeah, that's with pre-select. They had pre-selected jurors. They picked which one. They knew what.
That's all trials, though. There's always a screening process.
Yeah, that's what
between
I'm saying.
prosecutors
if you
and
have
defense. So.
professional jurors chosen at randomly, and if you get caught, there should be severe punishment for if you're a juror and you get caught being biased and choosing something other than what should be chosen.
But that's kind of why there is a jury selection as well, because even if you select at random, you can't determine that somebody's not going to be biased. Because if it is, so an example right now, Donald Trump, if you were selected at random, you personally selected at random to be on his trial, and it was random selection, you had no choice, there was no cross-examination of jury, it's you and then 11 others, could you honestly say you would be impartial during his trial? We support Donald Trump. It would be very hard for like you or I to stay impartial during his trial. We would go in already saying he's not guilty. So
I could go
that
in
would
there
be-
impartial because I'm not a supporter.
yeah,
It's just for me that if my two choices are orange or dementia, I'm picking orange.
yeah, I'm going with the circus peanut for
So-
sure.
So you're saying even if it's a professional juror and they have a pre-selected bias, how would you?
You
Sometimes I get
you
what you're
would
saying. It
have
could be hard to vet that bias out
Yeah.
if they're trying to hide it.
It
I
would
guess
be,
they would just have to-
It would be like you would have to take an oath, like the Hippocratic Oath.
Yeah.
You would have to say, "I promise to be impartial." If it's a famous person in a public trial and I come into it with a preconceived notion, I will let you know, and then you spin the wheel again to select another random. But then again, human beings, and somebody might be like, oh, if I don't intervene and be biased, the other people are going to be biased. It's tricky because humans, we're not cold calculating machines. Things get messy. So you can't account for everything. You just have to test.
I
see
mean,
what
I
happens.
think even if there was slight bias, being a professional juror would still mean you have to go through all of the proof, and there's no way it's going to be all if you had a professional jury in Trump's case, they would just acquit him. They'd be like, this doesn't make any sense. Get out of here. We're not doing this.
Anybody of sound mind should have been like,
Yes.
what's the felony? It's a secret. Not guilty.
Yeah.
What do you mean it's a secret? Not guilty. Can't be a secret. See, I'm always so skeptical because I'm looking so far down the line with your who's training the jurors, who gets to determine.
It would be part of law school.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be no different than like taking a course to actually become a lawyer, just not as
Right.
long. It'd be like a 2 or 4 year course instead of going for
Yeah.
8.
But as we see even higher education right now, even like Harvard and Cambridge and schools like that are still pushing out these weirdo activists.
Yeah, but I'd still trust a jury that actually went to school to, understand how to be a juror compared to a
Yeah,
jury
like,
of my peers.
Of course, it's never going to be foolproof.
Yeah.
But it would be a way better system than having random people where
Chosen off the
half
street.
of which can't think critically, and their
That is
IQ is
true.
going to be
That is
80.
true. That is true.
Because the average IQ is not 100. No. It's like 98 or something like that. Even though 100 is supposed to be the average, it's like 98
Well,
currently.
we searched this up before. In the United States, isn't it like only 82 or something?
No. 100 is supposed to be the average.
Oh, okay.
Depending on what everybody's IQ is currently, they switch how the test is done. And 100 is supposed to be. Currently, it's like 98 or 97, which means people are getting stupider.
Yes.
Idiocracy.
Yeah, that's what we're moving towards.
It's happening.
And it's crazy because we have all this technology at our fingertips, yet we're getting dumber simply because adults are not passing down the knowledge of critical thinking skills. Honestly, that's the only thing that I see. It's the only problem is adults are not passing down critical thinking skills.
Yeah, currently 97 is average.
That's
from
for the
84
U.S. or world?
Yeah,
97 for
USA.
U.S.
Ranks
I thought
third.
it was down to like 82 for us.
ranks 30th. 85 to 114 is normal, which, man, 85.
I really want to take an IQ test.
115 to 129 is above average, and then if you're above 145, you're
A genius.
gifted.
Yeah.
Above 160 is like genius.
What was Einstein? Wasn't he only 149?
161?
Yeah. Ooh, I wonder what's his name is Terrence Howard?
Terrence Howard, yeah, that was just on Joe Rogan.
They
Yeah.
believe somewhere
Yeah, that's
between
Terrence
160 and 190. They never measured it though,
You're right.
because I don't think that existed back then. Ooh.
I think I'm going to try to find a
currently
couple
has
of
the-
free IQs online and try to see where I'm at. I've never taken like a full EQ test.
So do you guys say we wrap this one up?
Yeah, I think we're good.
We've
We went
covered them
through
all.
them. We veered off a couple of times, but it all basically stayed on track. We got kind of philosophical with a bunch of it.
way. Current highest IQ, Young Hoon Kim from South Korea,
210.
is said to have the highest IQ with a score of 276.
Is that the she might be like a 10-year-old child now?
Kim is a member of the Giga Society, a group for people with IQs over 190, and has achieved perfect scores on several experimental intelligence tests. He also serves
Impressive.
as, well, of course it's going to be a guy. They're better
I-
at everything.
I had seen something.
Quit being
right,
misogynistic.
That there was a
Can you define that?
Oh no, I don't know. I just heard the word somewhere, and I
such a
heard someone call
misogynist
someone
right
else
now.
that word, so I figured I'd call you that.
yeah.
He also serves as an advisor to organizations such as the World Mind Sports Council, the World Memory Championships.
He's South Korean.
Yeah.
I wonder what his interested field is.
Being smart.
Yeah, but I hope it's not something useless like string theory. you know?
Oh, like what?
I hope he's actually into
like the thing he devotes most of his time to.
Yeah, if it's something useless like string theory, I'm gonna be so mad. Like please be something humanitarian, please.
Oh, like trying to end world hunger or something like that.
Renewable fuel source.
Or
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
or like cutting outros.
Yeah, that sounds good. What are we at? Oh, yeah, we're at hour and 46. That's longer than I
Yeah.
thought it would be. Yeah. Yeah, this is a good episode. We covered 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. What are we doing next week?
I believe it's
9, 10, 11, 12?
Yeah, the next episode was 9 through 11.
Oh, 9 through 11. And we'll have to find out what those are next week.
yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for watching or listening. Share us with your friends. Like, comment, share, subscribe, or don't. Doesn't matter.
I mean, just play us for your dog. I'm sure
Ooh.
they'll like our conversation.
Ooh, yeah, we should do ASMR for animals.
Yeah, if you want us to howl,
That'd be
hit the like button.
that'd be really good. But yeah, on that note, goodbye.